Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for being here. We are going to allow a couple minutes to allow some people to come on in before we get started. But I am thankful for everybody joining us this evening as we are going to talk about how ready are you for the college admission process. There is a lot going on right now in education, in college admission, and we want to make sure that you are prepared for that. So we're going to allow a couple people a couple minutes to get settled, and we will get started. Please, as you are settling yourselves, whether it be on at home or maybe someplace else, just know this entire presentation will be shared with you. So while you maybe want to take copious notes, just know all this will be shared with you at the conclusion of this presentation, so we can make sure to get that to you. So we are excited that you are here, and so we will get started momentarily. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome, everyone. Again, thank you for allowing me to be a little bit tardy. Thank you, Tim, for grabbing the reins. But yes, we are very, very excited to be presenting to y'all tonight. Lots going on, and we have a very succinct run of show for you. We want to make sure that we can be effective in our teaching, but also share things that we believe to be critical. So, welcome, and again, thank you so much for being here. Tim, I'll let you do the overview.
Yeah, so just we'll start off. My name is Timothy Fields. I am Senior Associate Dean of Undergraduate Admission at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. I spent the last 20 years at Emory University working primarily in admission, also worked in some academic support. Prior to that, worked with TRIO programs, Upward Bound programs, also worked with college athletics, student affairs. So worked in a lot of different areas that pertains to the application side. So much of my professional career has centered around students accessing college and reviewing their applications as they begin thinking about that. I also am fortunate to be the co-author of the Black Families Guide to College Admission, a conversation about education, parenting, and race, alongside of my partner, Shereem Herndon Brown.
Yes, and I am the Chief Education Officer and founder of Strategic Admissions Advice. We're an independent college admission consulting firm. We help families to navigate the college admissions process as well as schools. So again, Tim and I have a wide range of experiences. We call me the application side. I help families kind of build their application profiles. Tim, having extensive experience on the admission side, has a very keen eye to what it takes to get in to some of the most selective schools in the country. But again, our heart is with anyone who wants the information, and we are making it our mission to make sure that we share what's happening now. Because if you come into this process, whether your family's a sophomore, your kids are a sophomore, junior, freshman, even eighth grader right now, things have changed. I don't know about you, but I applied to college in 1991, and things have changed in 30 plus years. And for anyone who's here now who thinks that the process, it's the same as it was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, or even 5 years ago, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you're wrong. So we wanted to intentionally let you know why it's important that you have new information now as you help your child, your family through this process, because we want you to all be successful. So, Tim, please, if you would walk us through the document a little bit and allow everyone to kind of get an idea of how they can break it up into bite-sized pieces in order for them to be most effective and successful in this process.
Absolutely. And like we said, everybody's going to receive this document. This document is, kind of a culmination of the work Shereem and I have done over the past 20 years, working on both sides of the desk, as well as we've gone around the country the last 4 years with our book, The Black Families Guide to College Admission. And so we settled around these three areas that we're going to go into in depth. First, knowledge. What is going on currently? What information do you have as you begin this process? And we're going to give you 10 key things that you should be thinking about as your knowledge base. Then we're going to talk about capital. What is capital? And it's more than money. It's your time. It's the time you spent, in supporting your student in this process. Not only, going to soccer practice, but also how are you supporting them and preparing them? What, resources are you giving to them as you think about, how you're going to navigate this process? And then willingness to act. Once you have the information, once you've invested in it, what are you going to do? And we're going to go in depth in each one of these things. But we have, 10 essential things that we are going to start with. And one of the first things we want to talk about, and this is very timely, that it is a new day. That as we talk about knowledge, we just, as Shereem alluded to, he applied to college in 1991. I applied to college in 1993. Neither one of us applied to college online. So that's just one difference that it happens. As far as most people stayed within 200 miles of where they applied to college. So people have an opportunity to apply to a lot more places, given the advent of the Common App, the Coalition, QuestBridge, and all these digital platforms. So people are applying to a lot of different places. Also, we're just going to say with the elephant in the room, there's a lot going on right now. Just earlier this week, a letter was sent out from the Department of Education that talked about all the sweeping changes that they wanted to take place as pertains to college admission. Now, the ins and outs of that we don't need to get into, but it's important that you know what's going on. So when you do see this information and people talk about changes that are going on in college admissions, specifically as it pertains to your students, what information was right. And we're going to talk about how to get that. The next thing, race is no longer a factor. The Supreme Court in 2023 made a judgment that said race can no longer be considered in the college admission process. So as long as I have been in the profession up until 2023, I knew when a student applied their race or ethnicity. Now, it did not determine the decision I made, but it was information I knew about that student. I no longer had that information. So when parents start thinking about, when I applied, there was affirmative action. When I applied, there were minority scholarships. When I applied, we had all these resources to help, Black and brown students and underrepresented students, first generation students. Now we still, have those things in place, but it's not in the same way as it was when we went to school. And so I know Shereem talks about that he, wouldn't have gone to Wesleyan where he attended without affirmative action. So there are these things that are in place that we thought, happened in the 1990s, the 2000s, even, 5 years ago. That is no longer the case. So we want to make sure people know it's a new day, know that race is no longer a factor as they begin this process.
So the next thing we want to make sure that, we talk about is the process has already begun. And I don't say that to alarm you. I say that because I want you to be proactive. Remember, you're going to talk about knowledge. We're going to talk about capital. We'll talk about our willingness to act. The process has begun. What does that mean? If your child is in middle school, 7th, 8th grade, you need to start thinking about, okay, what is the end goal? How are they going to get to the college or have the choices amongst the colleges, ideally, that we want them to have, given their talents, given their strengths, given their interests? The sequencing of courses, I need you to hear that when I say this. The sequencing of courses, which is on a transcript, the courses your child takes over their high school experience that progressively and appropriately become more challenging and rigorous are key to determinants to how they will be evaluated in this process. So when I say the process has begun, is because some people already knew my kid needs to be in calculus or physics C if they want to be a strong engineering candidate at MIT, Caltech, Georgia Tech, the rest. So the process has begun because people need to understand that courses matter, standardized test prep, which we're going to talk about in depth, matter, the extracurricular activities that your child's involved with. Of course, you can always look at schools online or visit in person to become more familiar with them. But we want you to be proactive. And again, I'm not trying to ring the alarm as much as and I'll wave my hand, don't like when parents say, oh, we have time. He's just a junior. We'll worry about that as senior year. Tim tells a great story of, when he has a friend from Morehouse where he attended, a buddy of his calls him and says, the first week or two of the daughter's senior year, says, "Hey, my daughter's applying to college. What should we be doing now?" The only thing Tim can do is say, "I could read your essay. I could maybe pray for you." But at this juncture, it may be predetermined the schools that she will be a qualified competitive applicant for because of everything that has happened previously. So again, we just want you to understand how this process works so you do not get thinking, okay, we'll start this in August or September of their senior year, where people who are different than you and more proactive than you started 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years earlier, and now they have a treasure trove of options. So that is important to me that that the process is the wheels are turning.
And Shereem, is it ever too late? There might be somebody who's like, "Hey, my student's a senior. Is it too late? Are we in trouble?"
No, it's never too late because there are 4,000 college universities in the country, 2,000 of which confer bachelor's degrees. There are many ways to skin a cat, and we know as adults it's not where you start, it's about where you finish. So there'll be plenty of opportunities, excuse me, to go to possibly a community college, to go somewhere for a year and transfer. It's never too late, but I do want you not to be thinking that's the only way to go. Being ahead of the game allows you more options and opportunities, and even know that it's not too far. Excuse me, it's not necessarily in the rearview mirror. So it's never too late. I'm always an optimist, but I'm also a realist, and I think most of the people on this call would like us to be proactive. So that's what I'll say.
And the next thing, you have to talk about money. We'll get into this as far as when we talk about capital, but a lot of the college admission process, we talk about what the students need to do. So almost all of these things are going to be attached to what is the student doing in school? How is the student thinking about what college they want to go to? But the money part of it, for the most part, is going to come down to the parents or the guardians and how much resources are they willing to put into supporting their students' college education. So what we want to do is make sure you're talking to your students, your families, about how much money is going to be available to support this. One of the most frustrating things that happens in this process is that parents turn this over to the students and say, apply to schools you're interested in. The student goes out and they're admitted to these schools. These schools give them financial aid packages and there's not enough money. And then this parent has to say, "Oh, well, we didn't save enough money for that. Oh, we're going to have to take out a second mortgage. Oh, we're going to have to get out some loans," and things that could have been avoided if at the beginning we talked about what money and resources were available for that student. So you have to talk about money in this process. There's no way around it. No matter if you are going to get a full scholarship or whatever the case is, you're a multimillionaire. You're not going to worry about money. Money should be a part of this because college costs so much.
And again, if, like I said, Tim, you're all going to get this document at the end of this. So again, thank you for joining us this evening. Each college will allow you to go to what we call the net price calculator, where they can give you some estimates around money and affordability that we hope that parents should become very familiar with. Again, it is your job, parents, to really take the lead on a lot of pieces of this puzzle, but particularly around cost. Because again, Tim, thank you for the story that you tell of, what time in your life at $75,000 a clip would you give an 18-year-old full reign over? Here's 75 times 4, $300,000 for you to play with to decide your future. Let's not pretend that anybody should be doing that. So unless you're going to give them that 300 grand to start a business, and even that needs to be monitored, let's make sure that you use the net price calculator to understand affordability. Reimagining your college list. This is a very, very important piece of the puzzle because we want families to understand that not just are things different, but if there's anything that we want you to know about us, Shereem and Tim, and understanding the choices as our umbrella company, we want you to redefine success. Success does not equal Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, Duke, Morehouse, Spelman, or Howard. It doesn't. Success means you go to the right place, ideally graduate in a 4 to 6 year time span, and can do so in a way that makes you feel good about yourself. So reimagine your college list. Parents, I'm speaking to you directly. You need to understand that so many schools have so many resources that we cannot get pigeonholed to thinking that it's one size fits all or that these schools are quote unquote better than others. The best school for you is the one that you're considering the cost, the location, the possible major for your child, and the career. We also want to be very clear. 60% of the colleges across the country admit 65% of their applicants. It's the ones that, the top 100, quote unquote, that you hear about always in the news that have these 20, 15, 10, 5, 3% admit rates that get all the attention, but then they get all the applicants because everybody thinks that those are the best schools. I will argue till I'm blue in the face, and that's going to be hard if you can look at me, that is not the way to go. Reimagine your college list means you are open to ideas, what's important for your kid. You're considering the cost, you're considering the location, you're considering the major and career, and not relying on old information. So we implore you to not get caught up in the prestige over price, but we also want to make sure that you're aware of the options, the variety of schools out there that can really serve your child well. In addition to that, and this is something that I'm big on, is where the name of your high school matters less than you think. So many people send their kids to private independent schools or move to the suburbs to go to X school, that they believe has a great reputation of getting kids into college. And I want to be clear with you, that matters a lot less than it used to, if it ever did. Your child competes against the curriculum at their school. If they don't have the grades and scores that their school is expecting their top of the class to have, they're not going to be competitive candidates just because they went to said school. Colleges get buried under applications from similarly prestigious schools from around the country. Please do not get caught up in thinking that my school and the tuition I pay for my kid to go to said high school should have an impact on where my kid goes to college. I wish it did. As someone who sends their children to independent schools, it'd be nice to be able to say, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, that's the one I want. But I need you to know, going into this process, do not look to your school counselor as the savior for your child to get into X school. You must be informed, your child must be engaged, and your high school is going to do their part by sending the transcript, writing the letters of recommendations from the teacher and counselors. But the name of the school that's on the front of the school does not weigh as much as many people think.
And so, the next thing we're going to go into, and just please keep in mind that all the college admission process is so subjective that, one of the biggest things in our fields is if you ask a question, somebody more than likely they're going to say it depends. And so as we talk about testing, it depends. There are roughly about 1,900 schools in this country that are test optional, meaning that, tests may not be required. It might be optional. Whether or not you submit that test is on you. But, during the pandemic, a lot of schools went to being test optional, and gradually there are most of the more selective schools are requiring testing. And so whether or not your student test is completely up to you, their ability, what's best for them. However, we think it's important the students arm themselves with taking an SAT or an ACT. So if they do want to apply to a school that requires a test, then they have that available to them. Most students, how many schools should most students apply to, Shereem?
Strategic Admissions Advice and Shereem Herndon Brown believe that students should apply between 7 to 12, 13, 15 tops schools in a range of REACH schools, target schools, safety schools. Those of you who choose to apply to 25 plus schools, that is your prerogative. I think that oftentimes leads too many students to possibly get too many not good news that they want to hear, which is damaging to their mental health. If your student gets into 52 schools and gets $2 million in scholarships, kudos to you. But that is not, in my opinion, a recipe for success.
And so if we use that number, 12 to 15 schools, and you kind of think about the target, the reach, the safety schools, maybe one of them is going to require testing. So you want to have that available to you. You also think about, scholarships. There may be scholarships that students want to apply for that may require testing. In the case that the student doesn't have a great test or something that they think is reflective of their academic ability, then there are, over 1,900 schools that they can apply to that don't require tests. But we just want to make sure that that is, available to the student, that they have it, and you can have choices. We don't then just by chance name our company Understanding the Choices. We want you to know the choices you have. You can take the test, you can see how well you did on it, and then you don't have to submit it anywhere if you don't want to. You can take the test and say, oh, I did well on this, and I have it available to apply to these schools or scholarships. So we want to make sure that that is available for students as they go about this process.
So, Tim, what school did you go to, Tim?
I went to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. HBCU that sits on top of the little red clay hill.
How many HBCUs are out there?
There are over 100. There are over 100 HBCUs. But when we go on the road and we ask about HBCUs, how many people can people name usually?
5, maybe 7 tops.
Yes.
And so please share with us why you, again, I have my own feelings about HBCUs. I've been indoctrinated, as you say, to have a strong predilection for HBCUs for families. And my own son attends an HBCU right now for the past year. But I want to hear from you why you are encouraging families not to overlook HBCUs.
Yes, I mean there are many reasons. Let's be clear. As we walk through this, we talked about how many college universities in the country, and we're not advocating for one or the other. We're not trying to put PWIs versus HBCUs, but we want people to keep an open mind about why they may or may not be considering these schools. I mean, in my personal experience, I enjoyed having the opportunity to be surrounded by people who look like me. I could just be myself. And there were, the curriculum as far as African American and Black history was, ingrained in the, pedagogy of the institution. So these things just happen, which I think there's nothing wrong with being at a place to where you are celebrated and you're not simply tolerated. If we move beyond just that experience, we can see here on the screen, what are the success stories at these institutions? You can see 75% of Black PhDs went to historical Black college universities. We can look at the Black executives, engineers, federal judges, doctors. We can see the foundation that these institutions have provided for over almost the past 200 years to allow students to thrive and grow. And so while there are only 100, it would be unrealistic to think that HBCUs can educate every Black student throughout the country. So that is not what we're saying, but we would want people to think, what are the opportunities for our students and thinking about these institutions? Also, there's this myth that they're not diverse. There are some HBCUs that have 20, 30, up to 50% of non-Black students. So the idea that these students aren't representative of the world and the opportunities that are available to them is just unreal. So we want people to keep an open mind. And, beyond just these statistics, just a quick story that a mother, shared. Her son went to an elite independent school. He would receive scholarships to several Ivy Plus type of institutions, but he was also accepted into Morehouse. The mothers told her family about it. They were excited about the Ivy type of institutions that he's admitted. And, the son was like, I really want to go to Morehouse. And the family was like, why would you go to Morehouse when you could go to Ivy League institution, when you have scholarships from these institutions? And the mother was having challenges. Like the family's like, why would you pass up on going to an Ivy League institution and go to a place like Morehouse that the facility isn't as good as the elite independent school that you went to? And the young man looked at his mother, and this is what she shared with me. He says, Mom, as long as I have gone to school, I have been one of the few Black people in my classes. I always have to be thought of, am I on scholarship? Why is my hair like this? And I just want you to go to a place where I can just be me. And so, for whatever, parents and guardians and counselors are thinking about this, there's something to be said about going to a place where students can just where they can just exist, where their presence is not questioned. They're not saying, oh, you got in because of X, Y, and Z. They can just be themselves. And so we just want people to keep an open mind because there are numerous opportunities that HBCUs open up. And I think we would be remiss if we did not talk about what's going on in the current landscape and where we want our students to be safest.
So I want to make sure that we also talk about the wine and cheese circuit. What does that mean? When we talk about the wine and cheese circuit, we're talking about gossipers, people who don't know a lot about college admission, or well-intentioned, good family members, friends, people have gone through the process once, maybe twice, but don't have their fingers on the pulse of the process. They are if you want to gather information that way, great, but please be discerning and do your best to get it from professionals. Yes, Tim and I can wave the flag. Oh, here, look at us, we're the experts. But you have a school counselor, right? You have colleges, you can visit colleges and ask these same questions. I really want you as families to understand that in this age of the wine and cheese circuit, social media, there's a lot of misinformation. And what that does is sometimes make you try to duplicate what someone else did or did not do. And what that can also alleviate some of the questions or possibilities you might have had otherwise. So please, please, please reconsider how you engage families or friends about this process, because the wine and cheese circuit, in our opinion, is oftentimes very detrimental, not to just your information and how you go about the process, but even as it is exclusive of so many schools that need to be considered.
And so as we wind up the knowledge piece of this, we, as you know, Shereem stated earlier, more than anything, we want you to redefine success. We want you to think about these 10 steps that we have laid out there, thinking about what schools you're looking at, where you're gathering information, should you take testing, where your children are applying to school, talking about money, talk about all these things to determine success within your home. Too many times, parents, guardians, counselors think success means that a student has to go to a certain type of institution. When you think about the people that you know in your life, who you engage with, some of them may have gone to Ivy League type of institutions. Some of them may have gone to a local state college. Some of them may have started a community college, but they arrived at a successful place. We want people to be thoughtful about this process and thinking what is best for the child as far as where they can grow, where they could be comfortable, where they can be safe, and where they can excel and find success based upon what they see success is and not what other exterior forces has determined. So next, we're going to talk about capital. I mean, we're always going to continue to talk about financial planning, costs, money. You cannot go into this process. And we're not even talking about college. There are families that early on thinking about what is the investment I'm going to put into my child. And then some of them decide to go to independent schools. Some of them decide to say, you know what? I may not have enough money to go to independent school, but we're going to move out into the suburbs and we're going to go to the best public school we can. So there is an investment in time and how much money you are going to put into your child's education that starts very early on. And that's one of the things we talk about in our book, is how early on the idea of financial planning starts. And so there's the actual financial planning as creating savings plans for college, but there's also the investment that you have as far as thinking about how are you going to prepare your students in primary and secondary school for higher education.
So we want to make sure that we are not just investing. People think about investment as, we want money, time, all of that good stuff. You're investing your time now, and we're appreciative of that. We're appreciative of your opportunity to engage with us, ask us questions, be on our mailing list. So you're investing your time, and to an extent, your capital, right? The time is money, just to be here. We want that to continue. We both think that it should be a consideration for you not to just try to wing this process. We are offering resources on our website, understandthechoices.com. As we mentioned, your school counselor, that investment may be you making a meeting proactively with your school counselor to make sure that you understand their procedures and protocols. So investing is a funny word. Capital is a funny word, but we want to make sure that you understand that money is attached to this, time is attached to this, information is attached to this, and we hope that you are seeing how serious we are about it, because all we want you to do is to win and be successful, but you can't do that unless you kind of touch on the knowledge, the capital, and finally drum roll, please, the willingness to act. Um, we all gather information. I've read a lot of books in my life, and some of them are self-help books, and I don't do what they tell me to do. After I read, oh, it's a really good book, and then I kind of turn around. This is not the time to do that. We wrote this book because we want you to have a willingness to act. We've given you what we call the expectation for success timeline, which gives you what you need to know for each year of the high school years in order to be very proactive in this process. If you need to engage in the process with your kid, set aside the time each week during the summer and fall. Yes, I said summer, I said spring, actually. Spring, summer, and fall, to engage your kid once a week about this process. You collectively, as a tandem, parent and child, need to act. You need to think about the money piece. You need to think about how you're going to visit schools, and when that's going to happen. Your child needs to be thinking about their essays. All these things are action-oriented things that if you don't do that, you will lose. So starting early, that's the willingness to act. We talked about that in the beginning. It's already started. Building the balanced college list. We don't want you falling into the trap, and I say that very, very seriously, of just applying to schools that researching schools that you're already familiar with. I call ESPN the greatest marketer of sports. They say applications at Ohio State and Colorado have exploded in the past few years, given the college football scene. Obviously, with March Madness coming out, we're going to hear more about that from the men's and women's basketball brackets. We must build balanced college lists based on who our kids are for cost, location, major, and career, and engaging in the process. Again, sitting down with your kid, talking to a school counselor. We want to be a resource for you. So please join our Facebook group. It's free. Understanding the Choices. You can hit us up on Instagram at Understanding the Choices. We have an email address, info@Understanding the Choices. We want to make sure that this document is something that you will use in your efforts to act, but also will engage with, so that you and your kid can be successful in this process.
And so, very quickly, Shereem, you talked about in the book we have a timeline for success. But if you could quickly walk through some of the things in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade the parents should be doing. Obviously, it's much more in depth. But I think we did a good job of kind of saying these are things that people should be thinking about depending upon where they're at in the process.
So 9th grade families, please understand the sequencing of courses, understanding how the academics that your child takes now will have an effect on their college process later. We always start with the end game in mind. So that is the most important thing for 9th grade families, as well as giving your child a chance to explore different extracurricular opportunities, whether it be inside of school or outside of school, as they're beginning to know themselves, what they like, the arts, civic engagement, athletics, whatever it may be, work and get a job. You want to make sure that they're doing that to their maximum, not just for their college resume, but for character building exercises. For the 10th grade, I want to make sure that you start thinking about, what is my kid good at? What are their strengths? What are their interests? How are we going to then strategically think about the courses that they take for the remainder of high school, and how they possibly may use their summers to build upon that academic foundation, that, again, not just for their college process, but to build an edification for their academic prowess. And start building that college list. I'm a big believer, whenever you are somewhere where you can visit a college, you're visiting relatives, visiting friends, put your feet on a college campus, get an idea of what that looks like. Allow your child to smell the college. Don't let them just see it through their phone or TV on ESPN. And definitely practice taking the PSAT and the PSAT or the ACT or even the SAT, because those foundational standardized tests, which are now digital, right? They're no longer number 2 pencils. They're now digital. The sooner we can orient our children to what they are and what they measure, the more familiar they'll become with them, and hopefully the best that they will do. For 11th grade, again, I'm the application side, so this is my bread and butter right here. I want them to refine their college list that they started building in the 10th grade. So again, one funnels into the other. I also want to make sure that they're taking the standardized tests that they've been preparing for. They're really growing in those extracurricular activities for their resume that we wanted to make sure they've been building upon since possibly freshman year. And then they're exploring summer opportunities. That could even be in the 10th grade. Not the summer is not for Netflix and chill. The summers is for you to be proactive, student, if you're listening to this, in an academic discipline, in a job, in an internship, or if you're going to your senior year writing essays ad nauseum. You need to use the summer to be proactive for your process if you want to be successful. Tim, you want to finish off with the 12th grade?
And so 12th grade is when you really actually get into applying to college. And so you want to think about, finalizing your college list. We talked about kind of building a balanced list as far as safety schools, as far as target schools, as far as reach schools, schools that you feel good about getting into. And if you want to take some shots, but your list should not be a bunch of schools that have less than 4%, 5%, 10% admit rate. Apply early and make sure your applications are strong. By applying early, there's early decision, early action. There's numerous opportunities available. Research and see what's best for you, but please do not wait till the last minute. Technology fails, things happen, information doesn't get submitted, so you want to make sure you do that. Parents, we talked about money. Students can complete their applications, but we want to talk about the financial aid, and that's what you have to do. You have to submit that information. So, while it's ideal that, families are together, we understand there's some families that, do not live in the same household, or maybe a divorce was part of the household. We want to make sure you get that information so you can provide as much money for those students. I cannot emphasize this enough. You have to maintain strong grades all the way throughout. Part of the college admission official being admitted to a school is that your successful completion of high school. And we look at what is your final transcript. So we're going to look at what is your final transcript. Did you complete your grades all the way through graduation? So even if you get in early your first semester, it's very important that you finish out strong. And then as pertains to extracurriculars, we want you to really think about what are you involved in. We want you to do things you enjoy. Shereem talked about, being active in the summer. A lot of times students say, what should I be doing in the summer? I said, do something you enjoy. You just don't want to just put stuff on the resume that, I think a college wants to see this. No, we want to see the things you enjoy. We want depth in the activities that you're doing, not just breadth. So you can be part of 20 different clubs or organizations, but if they don't mean anything to you, that's not going to come out in the application. And then, Shereem, I know we would be remiss if we did not talk about essays. Just as students are putting together their applications, what are some of the most important things they should be thinking about as they're putting together their essays to show their voice in this process?
I will be, you can stamp me on this saying personal essays come from the heart, supplemental essays come from the head. We want students to share their lived experience, what they think about intellectually, what's important to them personally, how they are making this world better. What are they sharing? What are their contributions? That sounds like a lot. So all I want the students to do is to document. We don't want students to try to make things up to impress colleges. We don't want students to be too abstract and I can't follow you. You want students to be clear. This is who I am. This is what's important to me. This is how I'm, this is who I'm becoming. All these key elements help students to feel good about their process, also shares with colleges what's important to the student. And at a selective school like Emory University, where Tim works, everyone's going to have great grades and scores. Everyone's going to have a rich resume. They want to know, what do you say about yourself? What is your story? How do you think? What are you going to contribute to our college community? So again, it sounds like a lot, but you know your kid well, mom and dad. And while you want to help them to brainstorm an essay, you want their fingers to be on the keyboard. If they're going to use voice texting or voice dictation on their computer, so be it. There's a role for AI in essay writing in terms of brainstorming and asking for suggestions. We do not encourage students to just use AI and say, write a college essay for me that will get me into Emory University. That's not how this works. Everyone is unique. We're all like a snowflake. There's no two of us are the same. And you must help your kid to recognize that so that their essay process is not something that they abhor or find as being laborious. You want them to enjoy sharing who they are and what's important to them so that then the right college, the right fit will select them for the right reasons.
And Shereem, you work with a lot of families in your business, the last one, preparing for the transition to college. You also, have put two children to college and help them in this transition? What are some of the things that, if there are some senior families and they're either already have decisions, waiting on decisions, what are some of these important transitional things they should be thinking about as well?
Stack your chips and get a lot of Kleenex because you're going to cry a lot. No, let me stop. It's important that you help that your young adult, because they're, almost 18, if not 18 already, understand that there's a lot of responsibility that goes into college education, that there's an expectation of return on investment. And when I say that, it's not just a job at the end of the tunnel. That may be it, but it's not. It's more than that. They're at the age where they can go to the military. They can go other places that we don't want our people to go, right? Incarceration. College is a real deal. I was recently informed that a student that we worked with went to college, and after the first semester had a 1.9 GPA and was asked not to come back. I think the transition to college was difficult for him because he was there to wild for the night. We are here for a reason. There's a reason why you're there. The academics, the social, but understand that there's a plan in place in order for you to be a mature enough young adult to start living independently and doing things with discipline and decisiveness. So I say that seriously. I say that jokingly. I say that because I love y'all and I want your kids to do well. But we cannot just pretend that our kids know how to do it on their own. They will build character by some of their bumps in the road, some of their growing pains. But we must help them by giving them some tools to be successful after college.
And so we've kind of laid out this document and really wanted to provide you with some information, but as we said, there's willingness to act. So what's next? One, if you are in this process, you have to partner with this school, and that starts with the college counselor. Obviously, most schools in this country, what's the average college counseling load for public school counselors, Shereem?
For 250 students per counselor.
And so it's going to vary from a public school, independent school, but you want to begin that conversation. And parents, yes, your students will be on the college campus themselves, but you have to partner with them to think about what schools are best and work with your college counselor. Obviously, we're providing resources, but there are a lot of books that are out there for scholarships, for different perspectives on how to navigate this college admission process. And so we want to provide resources. There are also online materials through the College Board, the National Association for College Admission Counseling, webinars like this that you can attend so you can acquire knowledge. We're not saying that what we're saying is, the best way. There are different people who have different perspectives, and depending upon what the needs, we want you to reach out to those resources. And finally, there is additional support. In the case, some of you may be part of community-based organizations. And then, I'll let you, Shereem, talk about that. If somebody wants some more in-depth, support in this process, some one-on-one help that they may not be receiving from their school, what are some of the options that they could have?
Always want you to start with your school counselor because they're there to support you. They want to be there. Educators are there by choice, ideally, not because they must. There are several independent consulting companies. Yes, I own one of them, but I don't want you to think that I'm the only show in town. There are educators like myself. Strategic Admissions Advice is my website. There's the college application specialist. There's a woman I'm very, very fond of. You can Google her name is Lisa Fuller. There's the college doctor, Pam. I forget Pam's last name, but the bottom line is that there are people whose their job, they're not moonlighting, they're not Ubering this. They're really doing this because they care, they have experience, they've been certified, and they want to help. So please, yes, school counselor first, additional resources or outside independence second. And yes, there are some online opportunities. See if your school uses Naviance or Score or My Learning. There are tons of tools that are out there, and they may not all be for you. I'm not just telling you to get a plethora of different tools and start, getting even more confused about that. Identify what helps you as a family kind of have a cadence to go through this process in a productive way. And that may be an independent consultant to hold your hand, but it may be just an online tool that can help you. I even advocate for College Genie, which is an AI tool, or College Guidance Network. So again, please do not be afraid to get information from a variety of places and decide what works best for you.
And so you've learned a little bit about us, but we just want to end with you can always contact us through understandingthechoices.com, which is our website. You can email us at info@understandingthechoices if you have questions. Follow us on Instagram. We have a YouTube page, so Understand the Choices. We have videos where we talk about essays. We talk about financial aid. We have other professionals that are, providing support. So this is just not the two of us. We are gathering people from different perspectives to help throughout this process. And then we also have a podcast, Application to Admission, in which where we bring in professionals, we share our own personal insight, what's going on, and that's available to you. And that's on all platforms. And obviously the QR code you can scan to get the book. So, we wanted to make sure that, as people are approaching this process, people digest information in a different way. And so this is going to be available online. Everybody who registered for this is going to receive a copy of this PDF that's going to be available to them. We're going to be available to answer any questions that you have because we want to make sure to share information. There is so much going on right now. And so if you're a family, we could see it's easy to be confused as far as to understand what's what. We want to make sure to get you the best information possible. Any class closing words, Shereem, before we, if you have some questions in the chat, you can, please share those. But definitely, we appreciate your time.
And please also, if you don't feel like asking them now, you can email us and ask us. And again, I think Tim and I both have our individual Instagram handles here. So you can also ask. Again, we want to be accessible. We want to share information. I'd like to close out by saying not just thank you to the people here, but thank you, Tim, for partnering with me to help people who need it. This is our life's work. And at the tender age of 50 for me and 49 for you, we know that we are on
you're telling my business. You're telling my business, man. Come on.
We are at the tender age of where we want to make sure that we are giving the people what they need in order to be successful. So this is our life's work. This is our legacy in many ways. So please understand that we want to help you, but we need you to reach out. So listen to the podcast, email us, go to the website, whatever works best for you. And thank you again for your attendance this evening.
Have a great evening, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.